We do have an invoice there. We've got the Ridge Hill demolition topic. We have the Sunita Williams, and we have the public safety, and we have a couple of items at the end to discuss. Sunita's got some invoices, and so does public safety. Is there any other agenda items for open at the end? Okay, for the couple of topics that I have for the end is we've got the school master plan, October 6th, just a couple of comments there. And then the building maintenance discussion, which we talked last time, just setting ourselves up for the 21st meeting. That's what I have for an agenda. If there's no other.
We do want to talk about the request on the part of FinCom regarding.
Yes, that's under the, I have that under Sunita Williams as C on my handwriting.
Fine.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Steve. Okay, with that, why don't we kick off the meeting? And the first item that we have with it, this meeting is being recorded, as we all know, open meeting law. We're still in the virtual meetings. So we've got a pretty good cadence of these meetings. So I'm not sure who is listening in, but we will go through each topic. And if there's questions, people can raise their hand, or I can see within the working group the visual faces. But if there's anybody in the audience, we'll look for that in the chat window for questions if need be. Okay, with that, first is if we could get approve the minutes. Somebody to put forth a motion to approve the last meeting's minutes.
I'll recommend approval.
Thank you, George. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thanks, Irwin. Any questions from last meeting in the meeting minutes? Seeing none, hearing none, coming to the vote. I will do a roll call. Richard?
Aye.
George?
Aye.
And I don't see Jean. Okay. Natasha?
Aye.
Roy?
Abstain. I was absent that meeting.
That's true. Thank you. Irwin?
Aye.
And Stuart, the chair, aye. Okay.
Wait, I was also not at that meeting. Sorry. This was the last meeting, right?
Thank you. That's okay. We have enough for the people that were there. Okay. With that closed, we'll move to the first major project topic is the Rosemary Recreation Complex. Is that going to be you, Mike?
It will.
Okay. It's over to you.
All right. Hi, all. Hope everybody had a good weekend. Just trying to get the last of the closeout done for things that need to get finished up at Rosemary. As we know, that was one of the other projects that also had the 2-year Conservation Commission requirement to get that project completely closed out. So last week and the week before, we met with Conservation on site, and we also met with the architect and the landscape architect, who was Nelson Hammer, and we ended up going out for a site visit, walked the area to ensure that everything we did there was satisfactory, and it was. We're putting together the current letters that need to go to Conservation, and we'll get on their agenda for one of their next meetings. Also, we got to get the plan together to be able to have that stamped also for part of the certification and post-construction closeout. So that's one item that's there complete. There's also a couple other items that have come up over at Rosemary that are still construction related, in the sense that we've got a lot of water pressure just from the town coming in the building. When we first water pressure, we did put a pressure reducing valve on the domestic side of the water, and we had discussed putting one on the pool side, but opted not to do it because we thought that having that kind of pressure there would be great. The pressure is a little over 100 psi, so it's well above where I think we need it. Well, we've come to find that with that pressure that high, it's caused a few problems at the spray deck. Literally, that water could shoot up above the second floor of the building almost in some instances. So some problems with some fittings and some other concerns. So meeting with the architect last week with part of the closeout, we did walk through the building, and we're looking for a location to add a pressure reducing valve into the building to take care of that problem. So we will have at some point a small PSS and a fee. We're not going to use the same mechanical plumbing contractor because, I think as everybody remembers, we had a problem with him with the sewer line way back that we had to switch out. So there's no longer a real relationship with VH+A and the VAV at this point. So we're going to use Crowley, and Crowley's been used here in Needham basically numerous times. We used him here at Memorial Park, and I think he's on some of the other jobs. So they're going to do a small design to put in that little that 3-inch pressure reducing valve somewhere in the system that'll fit at the building. So those are some of the issues. There are a couple operational issues also that caused concern over at the pool. And now that the pool's run itself for a couple of seasons, we've seen what those are. One of them was the meters, the flow meters. They were a paddle wheel style that was in the pipe in the filter room, and we found that those became problematic because of hair, because of sand, because of suntan lotion, and it makes like a goo with all that, and then it gets caught on the paddle wheel. The flow meters wouldn't work, which in turn they would have to pull them out, clean them, put them back in, and sometimes it would cause the system to go into alarm. So those have been replaced with a mag style probe. So that basically that'll eliminate that problem. But there was a small cost to that. Currently now, for the costs we have, I'm also meeting with the assistant town manager tomorrow with Stacy, who's the new Park and Rec director, and a handful of others to look at what's left in the budget here. For Rosemary right now, we have about 40,000 that's still encumbered, and we have about 62,000 that's unencumbered. So we're looking to use some of that money to take care of some of these issues that have arisen.
You ready for questions? You ready for questions, Mike?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. I see you, Irwin, but George had his hand up earlier, and I'll go to you.
That's fine.
Yes, I have a question. Why do you think the pressure is so high? That's a really high pressure.
Yeah,
That's apt to cause problems in a lot of different areas, because that sounds like it's almost an overpressure that might cause leakage in various components and so forth.
No. Well, here's what we did. On the domestic side, where it comes in, we put a pressure reducing valve on and drop the pressure down to where it should be, around 60 pounds. So on the pool side, which is a separate feed, we did not do that because we thought, in fact, that we would need that because of all the features and everything that's at the pool and how often the water needs to turn over there and what the operation rate is. We wanted to make sure we had the pressure there. So this is strictly on the pool side. It's not on the domestic. We took everything from that domestic side that's upstairs in the building, and there's a main valve off of the T that comes in there, and that takes care of keeping all that other pressure down. Now, the reason why it's so high is because we're in a really low point, and it comes from the tank that's all the way up the hill at the top of Bird's Hill.
Oh, it's Bird's Hill, not Tower?
It's on that tower, Tower Road, off the backside there.
Yeah, that's the tower. That's the tower.
Yeah,
side.
it's way up. So that's why that pressure is so high.
Wow, that's really high.
Yep.
And what, wasn't there a design pressure that we knew about for the design of all the components on the pool side?
Yeah, there was. But
What's that pressure? Do you know?
I don't know. No, I don't know. It's definitely not 100. So
Can you
no,
can you ask the question of
I will.
of the engineer? Because
I'll talk
it
to the
sounds like a
architect.
real high pressure. And the one thing that I'm concerned with is even on the pool side, there's a bunch of equipment. And if we're seeing a real high pressure all the time, then I think that's problematic over the long term.
Yeah, but I mean, as soon as we put the reducing valve on it, it's not going to be problematic because we're going to cut it down. We'll be able to control it at that point.
I understand, but the design engineer ought to
Yeah.
know what that should be
Right.
and ought to be able to answer that question.
And Tom Scarlotta did give him a bunch of information on that because we're not using the same, well, I should say that Weston and Sampson's the one that did all the pool side, and Tom Scarlotta did the design for the pool. So with Crowley involved, he was talking directly with the architect.
Well, I'd like to see the opinion of the engineers that designed that and what
Sure.
the design pressure ought to be, so we know what to set the pressure at and aren't just having a plumber set that pressure.
Right.
That's it.
Well, C.A. Crowley's not a plumber. They're the same ones that did all the mechanical and plumbing here at, they're the engineer that did all the mechanical and plumbing design here at Rosemary. At Memorial Park. So this is an
So
engineer. It's not a
they're-
plumber. It's
It's an
not a plumber.
engineering
It's a-
firm. Okay.
Right, correct. C.A. Crowley, yep.
It's a good idea to get, I think, Scarletta's opinion on this.
Correct.
And when we pay for it, I'd like to hear it.
Okay.
Okay, George?
Yeah.
I think Irwin had a question at some
Irwin?
point.
Yep.
Yeah, two quick questions. First one is pretty standard. Is there adequate funds
Yeah.
and what's left to pay for this?
Yeah, I have 40, like we said, when we looked at this initially, around 42,000 that's encumbered, then another 62,000 that's unencumbered. So, yeah.
Oh, I didn't hear the six in front of the two.
Yeah,
Second question, we spent a lot of time and expense to change the design for the pool going in to deal with the water pressure from groundwater. Do we have any early indications whether the design seems to be working?
well, we haven't seen any problems from it. So the only issues we've had over there at the pool was some, we had some cracking in the deck. And then we had, which was minor, that GNR came back and fixed. And then we also, we noticed a couple of spots where we had some bad welds in the pool gutter, and those also were fixed. So we found a couple more this year in another location. So we're also looking at that to make sure that issues.
No indications that the design isn't performing.
No, I haven't seen it.
Irwin,
Thank
we won't uncover that until we vacate the pool, and we haven't vacated the pool.
Right, I understand that. I just want to know if there was any preliminary indications of anything to be concerned about.
No, they actually pumped it down pretty well this year, and we didn't see anything. But you know, we have that 5-year warranty, and I think we said at the 4th or 5th year, we want that pumped down to see what it's going to look like.
Yeah, you'll get the maximum head of water pressure. And if there is any cracking, you'll see it at that point. But unless you pump it down significantly, you're not going to know that, as Steve said, until
Well,
you pump it down.
They pumped the family pool down. There's only a couple feet left in the bottom of it this year. So,
Oh,
But the lake was also drained.
that's right. The lake was drained when they did that.
so
Yeah, when they dredged.
it did start to come back at that point.
So,
Because you have to remember that was done in, they didn't open until the end of July. So when they were working on it at the beginning of July, and the lake project was just about finishing up then, they were already starting to fill the lake.
Yeah.
That's good. Okay.
Okay. Irwin, anything else?
Oh, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, the only question I have or comment is that when will we close this out? It's concerning that you know, did we expect to go through 2 cycles before we close this project out to catch this stuff?
I was I still have to pay these guys for this Concom stuff. So, you know, I mean, I talk about closeout, but with this 2-year moratorium to be able to finalize this stuff, you have to, you know, you've got to pay your, you got to pay the landscape architect or your wetland specialist.
Yeah.
Is coming on to do this, and then we have to go to a meeting at conservation to make sure they, you know, all the orders closed out and signed.
Yep.
Well, can I just interject? I think the town manager has requested that some of the funds be diverted to items that are necessary for operation of the pool, which weren't included in the original budgeting. So the expectation, and actually I thought that the committee would be sensitive to that. So I think the expectation is that there is going to be no money basically left over on this project. It's basically going to be spent out.
Well, with that said, I think that would be concerned is that, you know, mixing the development and delivery with the operational aspects, and that's where the paddle wheel comment comes up, is that there's some operational stuff. And I think that I've always believed that if we need to assume some funds for operational aspects or outside of the scope of what we were charged to do with, we need some level of recognition for that, or close the piece out and give the money back to be distributed elsewhere. I just want us to do the right thing and what we're charged with. So,
well, I think discretionally, there are items that are needed in this particular facility, unlike most facilities, because of the learning curve on the on operation side. And I would hope that the committee is somewhat lenient in evaluating those items as they come forward in the discussions that Mike is going to have with the assistant town manager. I just believe that it is the proper thing to do in this particular case.
Why do you say that, Steve?
Well, because it's been a learning curve. We kept the budget, as you know, the budget was tight. We were concerned with huge change orders that came through the process. So we elected to tighten the belt on any approved change orders going forward. And we have a reserve, we do have some money left over now, and the town believes there are deficiencies in the operation of that facility that could use those funds. And I didn't think that that was outside the 4 corners of the appropriation.
I don't think I agree with that. Why do you say that there are deficiencies? What are the deficiencies?
Well, we'll identify what they want the money to be spent for, and then you can decide whether that was a shortage in the FF&E that we had allocated to this project, or the design.
You're talking about furniture that we didn't put in? I thought we put in lots of furniture.
Well,
They need shelves, they need some other stuff down there that we didn't get because we weren't going to spend additional funds. I can speak to some of that. And again, as Steve mentioned, some of these deficiencies, if we want to call them that, came about and we didn't expect them. We used the least expensive alternative with those paddle wheel flow meters, and then discovered, because of that beach that's up against that we couldn't change, because that beach area needed to be a porous surface because it's so close and within the buffer of the the lake, we got so much sand going into the pool combined with the amount of air that gets in there and also feathers from the geese that it was clogging those paddle wheels up, literally stopping them from spinning, which in turn caused operational issues. So by changing the paddle wheel to the mag meter, that helped. And now the system is running far more efficiently
We've
without.
already done that, right?
They have done that, but they did it on their own nickel, and they should be reimbursed for it somewhere along the line.
That I could see
Okay.
including in the budget, but ongoing operational expenses I have a problem with.
Well, I don't think they're operational expenses in the sense of manpower. We're talking about items to fit out the facility that weren't in the original scope or were left out of the scope because of budget constraints and assuring that we weren't going to move beyond the allocation. I think there is some margin in this particular facility for that type of consideration.
There's a lot of intricate pieces to this. The way the system runs, the way the filter tanks work, the way they communicate with the chlorine meters, with the CO2 and everything. And if things aren't tweaked right, then you have problems, and then they start spending money because they blew through a ton of CO2 last year. This year they tweaked it with some better regulators and some other things that they had to put in them to basically get that system to run correctly. So
I think and we need to wrap this segment of the agenda up, but I would just ask that we look at each item. I'm of the mindset that there are certain commissioning aspects to this facility that I agree are different than other facilities. But I am concerned that, we've been through a couple of these conversations before where at the end of a project, we need to close it out. It's been out there for a while, and fair enough, there's a two-year aspect of CONCOM and a few other things. But now we start to get into operational stuff that really needs to come out of something else. I don't think we as a group, and I'm speaking to everybody and people can speak up if different, I don't think we have an issue looking at these items and considering them, but I don't think we should be in the business that there's a budget. Now let's start throwing some stuff in there. You can see what's happening on the other side of some of these projects where we're getting really squeezed and the perceptions aren't equal in my book. So I think we need to be careful. And I think if we do give it due consideration and it's fair, I think as a committee, we probably are okay, but we need to look at them carefully. I don't think it's fair to just assume operationally, because there's some money there that we squeezed it down, that all of a sudden, yep, let's just go for it after. Why didn't it happen a year ago for some of these decisions? But with that said, unless there's any other comments, I think it's fair. Let's just make sure we have clarity on the items that are coming to the committee relative to the monies.
I'll have a list for you at the next, right after this meeting I have with the town manager tomorrow.
Okay. Any other comments? We have one voting item before that, after that. Any other comments from folks on the committee? Okay. All right. Thanks, Mike. And then we just have one voting item, right, Mike? Which one? Invoice for Valley Communications?
Yeah, Valley Communications for $925.
Yep. So I'll put forth a motion to pay the invoice from Valley Communications for service charge for repairing the TV under warranty. And it's within the technology budget of $925. Do I hear a second?
Seconded.
Thanks, George. The only question I have, if anybody else has questions, is if it's under warranty, why are we paying?
Well, I'll speak to that. So this was the TV. The TV was under warranty, and then they called them in because they thought there was a problem. It wasn't with the TV. They thought it was with the connection. And then as they searched out to figure out what the connection was and what was going on, they found out ultimately that one of the TVs, one of the large smart screen TVs, had a faulty board in it. So they pulled the TV off the wall, took it out, sent it back to the manufacturer. There was no charge for any of that. fixed the board on the TV, brought it back out and put it back up. And actually it happened after the warranty because this was in September or October and the warranty was up, I think, in late August. So we only got charged for their labor, but they actually had the TV fixed for nothing.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, hearing none, coming to the vote. We'll do a roll call as usual. Richard?
Aye.
George?
Aye.
Natasha?
Aye.
Roy?
Aye.
Irwin?
Aye.
Stuart? Aye. Okay, great. All right, that wraps that agenda up. Next agenda item is the Ridge Hill demolition. And Steve, who's going to cover that?
Me.
You, Mike. Okay.
Yeah, twice in a row.
You like
sorry.
demolition, don't you?
And I'm at the end too, so I'll be with Ken.
Okay.
All right. So if I could start, I had sent you guys a draft of the Ridge Hill demolition. We were asked by the town manager a while ago to be able to look at the estate manor house and the garage. The barn is excluded from this study. So we ended up hiring Dorn Whittier to do a study on this because we wanted to get a cost on the demolition. So we ended up putting this study together and came up with a value for the for an estimate, so they can present it at town meeting to see if they get funding to be able to put this forward. So the study consisted of a phase 1 report by Lord Environmental for the grounds and any type of oil tanks that may be around. Obviously, we went through the same routine we had gone through with some of our other buildings. We did notice some vents that are there. We think there may be at minimum one oil tank next to the old garage because there's a hand crank pump system that's set in the garage floor that may have been for some kind of fuel, whether it be gasoline or diesel, we don't know. We'll need to do a second phase of a study during design if this moves on to confirm where this potential tank could be. We did find a vent pipe, like I said, outside on the same side of where this pump was, and they also found a vent pipe at the front of the manor house. But there are existing oil tanks down in the basement, so they weren't sure if there could have been an old oil tank out front buried by the driveway, or if maybe one of those had gone to one of the old oil tanks that may have been inside. They don't know, but we'll definitely check that out afterwards. So, we sent them all the reference material. As some of you may recall, there were a couple other studies done up there at that parcel for a senior center at one point. And then there was a Catlin study that was done way back. So they had a lot of information and a lot of history with those studies that they used as reference. We pulled a lot of information from the engineering department, plan-wise and survey-wise. So they had that, and obviously the other resource maps that are up there. So I thought that for the draft part of the study, Dorn Whittier did a good job. We had PM&C come in, and they were hired as the estimator for the project, and so that's on here. We had a construction cost of $633,590, but that didn't include soft costs and some other items. So the final study, which is due Friday, will have everything in it, and we'll put that out. It's a pretty good chunk of change considering it's for demolition. As I recall, here, but unfortunately I didn't write down exactly what was.
Well, it shows on page 5 of the hazardous materials. There's a breakdown of Or I had the question, I'm just jumping in. I just had the question of how you got to 633, but
633 is PME study in the back. So if you go to the back, that's just their construction estimate. So this is everything else.
George, I see your hands up, George. Do you have a?
Can you explain again what the scope is? Is it's just the manor house and the garage?
Correct.
And why doesn't it include all the buildings?
Because the town manager said they did not want to tear down their barn.
Okay. Is there a reason for that?
Yeah, the ranger lives in the barn. It's used as housing.
I didn't think anyone was living there anymore.
No, it was used as housing.
It was used. It's not used now.
No,
I think it's packed with storage stuff.
it is.
From the high school theater.
That's part of it. We didn't even go in the barn.
Okay. So any future use of that site is not going to include the barn? I'm looking at it from a 30,000 foot view here, asking the question, what is this leading to? We're tearing down a couple of buildings. What's it
Correct.
leading to? What's
Correct.
the end goal here?
Well, I can tell you right now, I go up there periodically because when we moved out of Memorial Fieldhouse, we took all the stuff that was here, brought it up there to store it. When we did Rosemary, we took everything out of Rosemary that was down there, took it up there and stored it. And I can tell you, there's broken windows in the house. Nothing's been, I mean, stuff that's been busted up there for years. And I don't know why they're not fixed. I can't tell you that. But, there's storage of brand new in the box, lights for something. I don't know where they were supposed to go, but there's lights up there. There's all kinds of stuff. There's furniture.
This is in the barn?
No, this is the manor house. The barn I've never been into, never stepped foot in it.
So the stuff that's in the manor house is just going to be dumped?
No, I've got an allotment in here that it's got to be moved out and taken somewhere else because it's of some kind of value.
I see.
So
I mean,
it's got to be stored somewhere, whether it's in a
I
box.
guess maybe I'm not supposed to ask this question, but what's the future of this? Why are we tearing this stuff down unless there's some future for it? Is there a general plan?
I think it's to remove the liability that the town has right now with that facility. And the general plan is something that is being developed by the selectmen and the town manager with a contract that they have with, at least in part, with Weston and Sampson, who's looking at the future uses of the site, the entire site.
Is that an ongoing study? Because that was a study that was done about a year ago. And I read the study and I didn't think it was ongoing still. Is it still a study that's ongoing?
I don't have an answer to that.
I mean, there's a study that was done looking at connecting Ridge Hill to the Nike site and what would have to be done there. I was just curious, is there an overall plan or what?
In that warrant article that was set up last town meeting, there was, I believe, $50,000. We're going to spend $19,500 on this demolition side, and there's still money left in that warrant article. Kate has not asked us to move on that other part of the task. She said just do the demo side. So I don't know if there's going to be more money spent on that. From that, I don't know.
Right. Okay.
Whatever the plan is, the select board and the town managers, they're working on it.
Yeah.
That's what you're saying.
Stuart,
Yeah.
if I can say one thing, if you go to page 12 or 14 on that study, you'll see the breakdown from the 633 all the way to the total amount of 850.
Yeah. I was getting down there. Okay, great. Yeah, I think, George, if I may just interject, I saw that your hand was up, Richard, and I know Irwin's got his hand up, but the one thing that I'd like to do is just make sure within the scope, we're just doing this within the warrant article. And I guess that before we go too much further, is there any issues from the committee or any commentary around the budget and the scope? Are we okay with the study that's been done and covering it? You said it's 19,005, Mike, to do the report. Okay. Relative to the warrant article, which had $50,000 into it. We were never given the $50,000, I don't think. We were just asked to do this, correct? So that's why I'm raising the question.
19,500, the study's done.
Well, right, but this is small numbers, but I still think we owe the diligence to ask the question. I mean, are we supposed to be managing this to 50K to manage 19 and we're good? And I just want to make sure we are doing what we're supposed to be doing for the study beyond just the discussion that we had.
Yes.
My understanding is, Stuart, that the appropriation was given to the town manager to manage, not to PVBC. She in turn asked the building design and construction to assist with determining an estimate for the demolition of that piece.
But the town manager hasn't asked us to stick to a certain budget number or anything, or are you reporting that separately?
She's aware of the number that we are using for the demolition. Is managing the remaining portion of that appropriation in whatever manner she deems necessary to. She may not spend it. She may spend it. I'm not sure.
Yeah, no, where I'm going, Steve, sorry, is I just want to make sure that, listen, if she's asking, if the town manager is asking us to be sitting at $25,000 or $15,000, we know we're over. But if there's no concern and we don't see any major change to the 19.5 and we're not being asked to manage, then I think that's the only thing I want to answer. Is just make sure we're doing what we're asked to do relative to the money.
Yeah, there's no issue. She saw the proposal. She saw what the scope was. I provided the scope, and Dorn Whittier provided the cost. The manager was involved with it. I sent it all on to her. All these dates that came up were through agreements with the town manager on when this would be due and when it would be.
Okay, and so I just want to make the follow-on statement to allow any other questions to appear is, what is the committee being asked to do? To just review the report and make sure it's okay, or just be in tune with it?
We have in turn given it to the committee for their eyes and comment. We were not asked to do that, but we basically work on a dotted line to the committee. We felt it was appropriate for the committee to see what we were doing.
Okay, so it's a sharing of the information. Okay, thanks. I just want to make sure that we give what you need to do within this time slot. So I know Irwin and Richard, you guys had questions. Your hands are down. Is there any other? Richard, do you have another?
I think I'm good. My questions have been responded to. Thank you.
Okay, Irwin. I see you, Roy. Irwin.
Yes, my question has to do on the scope and costs for the demolition of these two buildings. And it gets to what Mike had mentioned about the vent pipes and the UST issue. I noticed there was some money for doing exploratory test pits around those areas.
Yeah.
But there's nothing in there if any contamination is encountered.
No, that's
does
like,
there need to be something in there for that?
that would have to come through the actual design. If that was the case, if we could find something, then we would need to seek funds for that. But they assumed that there would be some cleanup, and they added that in. We actually have to double those costs, because I think this initial one only had one tank in it, and they're afraid there's two. So, and they were conservative with all their numbers, because when you look at this as from a demo side, it's almost $900,000. It's $855,000 for those two buildings. So, to me, that's a high number. I didn't think it would be that high overall. I was thinking,
Right. So
5.5.
Yeah, I thought it was high too. Am I missing where the possible addressing of contamination is in there somewhere?
Test pits for UST was one of them, but when you go to the PM and C breakdown in the back, that has something in there for some. So at least that's where I saw it last time. So it's included.
There's an allowance in there. I
Correct.
have the same concerns, Irwin, that you do, that we don't necessarily know what the conditions are, and yet we're working with a demolition number that is going to be requested from town meeting, I believe. And yet we don't know the overall conditions of the area. So we have worked with an allowance at this stage. I've tried to explain that to the town manager, and I'm not sure exactly where we go unless we do the location of those tanks. We don't know where those tanks are, and doing test pits is fruitless unless we have some indication of where those tanks are.
Well, we do ground penetrating radar also, so just to make sure.
So are those sort of rolled into the 633, 590 costs? Is that part of that?
The allowance.
He's got
The
some,
allowances and possibly doing GPR or something like that, is that folded into the 633, 590?
well, again, that's construction, so it should be folded into the 850, to the difference of the 855. The
Okay.
630 is the construction cost. So what they did
Right.
was under G 1040, under PM and C's cost estimate, you'll see that they carried an allowance. That allowance needs to get doubled. They know it needs to get doubled. When this came in, it hadn't been doubled because they had a follow-up conversation with Lord about that second pipe and wanted to add that additional number in here. So, like I said, this 855 is going to go up a little bit.
Yeah, okay, I don't want to belabor it, but I'm looking at page 12 of 14, and I guess I'm not seeing that.
Correct.
I'm not seeing that allowance.
But because some of it is included with the, like I said, on PM&C's estimate, you'll see a number back there for 10,000, but that's going to.
Okay, so that's part of the 633, 590 then.
That part is, yeah.
Okay.
So,
Okay, Irwin?
Yeah.
Well said. Okay, Roy, did you have a question, comment? We'll wrap it up.
Yeah, my only comment is, I heard the comments on all the materials that have been moved several times and that now are in these buildings. I know this isn't probably the purview of what we do, but I hope we're not moving stuff that is, destined for trash bins or recycling, and that there's some kind of inventory of what we have, so we're not, it sounds like, I've seen this at other institutions, so I'd like to suggest that we try to tackle that so we don't spend dollars moving things that we'll never use.
that's a good point.
Okay. All right, George, I see you have your hand up. Just one last comment and then we'll wrap it up.
Okay. This is for Steve and Mike. I guess I'd like to see separated out the cost of demolition for the project and the cost that we've set aside for potential hazardous materials, and a red flag on that, so that when it goes before town meeting, we can say, look, if we knew there was no issue here, this is what it would cost us to tear this building down and meet all the requirements. And this is how much money we've put in there for a dollar amount to look at the issues that are there. We don't know what's there. It's another one of these things where we're going to take the responsibility for trying to do this with an estimate that we have no idea what that estimate is. Is there a way to separate them out and let town meeting know that this is potentially an issue? We don't know what it's going to cost us to do that. But we've got to let them know what the issue is.
I'll have Gordon Whittier put in a separate line item for it.
What do you think of that, Steve?
Well, that's that's the only issue.
Well, do you know what the scope is? No, you don't. Well, I mean, you know what it costs to tear the buildings down if they were all clean, but you have no idea how clean those buildings are and whether they're buried tanks or issues with the ground. I mean, I think it's misleading to ask town meeting for a budget number for this without letting them know that the cost of tearing the buildings down is this, and we have confidence in that. But the cost associated with potential issues, we don't have confidence in. It's a holding number. That's how I feel about it. I think we need to let them know this.
I would agree. I think there should be a better cost breakdown and assumptions.
But you can't break down the costs if you don't know what they are and whether there's tanks in the ground or not. It's just going to make us look silly again. It's not, I don't think it's fair to us to ask us to estimate something that we can't estimate. But it's kind of a warning to let them know that this is what we're putting in there. But, we may have to come back to you and ask for more later because of issues that we find.
But I think, George, I saw your hand up, Irwin, so forgive me. I'm just going to punch in. But George, this is why I raised the question earlier. Now I'm now questioning what our responsibility is. Steve and Mike have said this is more of a sharing of information. They've been asked to go do this. PVC hasn't been asked to qualify this. Am I mishearing, misleading? But if we're here
when
to
it goes
qualify,
to town,
then I
when it goes to
totally
town,
agree with you, George, in terms of what we have a responsibility for. But other than that, then it's the town that's, it's the
when it goes to town meeting, it's going to come back to us, say, tear the building down. Here's a project for you. I don't know who else is going to do it.
Yeah. Irwin?
I was just looking at the end of the phase 1 report, and it's very kind of vague about, they really avoid any recommendations. They say that there was likely evidence of a previous underground fuel tank and an underground gasoline tank. No further information, potential release from these tanks was made available. So they're throwing out this red flag and then they're just leaving it hanging in the phase 1 report. So anyone reading that would say you need to probably look at that a little further, even though they didn't explicitly recommend that.
I think during design, that's when we'd go out there and actually do test pits, figure out what's going on, and then do like we always do, then come up with a better estimate. This was a study just to come up with a figure here. We weren't planning to go out there to do borings and doing everything again. This was just a study to say, all right, if we're going to tear the buildings down, what do we got to do? And here's what we found. So we'll put in an allowance, but design's really going to get us down to the nitty gritty on what specifics need to get done. And to talk to Roy's in where this stuff's going afterwards, because some of it's of value. Does it have to go off to auction? Does it not? Is it going to go in the trash? I don't know. That's a whole nother animal per procurement. But yeah, there's definitely more. But for the study, I think I thought it was pretty thorough considering what we had to do up there and basically what we found. We've talked to the fire department. We've talked to a DPW. I know some of this other conversation that went on. They used to store a lot of the lawn equipment up there for parks and forestry. Now all that's gone to the JCB building, the new one. So, that's what.
No telling what's in the ground.
Yeah, so I'd like to try and, I'd just like to try and close this agenda item out, but I'd like to draw this conclusion, and I ask for the committee to put the input if it's not correct. But based on what I've heard from you, George, Irwin, and the discussion we just had, I think we've given feedback, and namely, or the most of the feedback I'm hearing is better clarity of the numbers and the assumption within the report. The committee's not willing to take responsibility for this project based on this report without some more clarity in there. Right now, we aren't being asked to do that, but as a committee, we're starting to assess and assume that if this is serious and going down the pike and it's going to go to town meeting and it's going to be passed and the committee's going to be asked to execute on that, we've already got our hand up. So I would like to reflect in the notes and the meeting minutes our concern about the clarity and the financial aspects of it. We're not disputing Doran Whittier's work. It looks like it's good work to a large degree, but I think there's some complexities here that unless they are ironed out, we will raise our hand immediately upon accepting any kind of execution to go do the demo based on the report. We got a problem. I mean, George, is that?
I think that's reasonable.
Okay, I'd like that reflected in the meeting minutes, that this committee is appreciative of hearing the report and having the input and would like to provide back a request to get more clarity. But more importantly, the committee is not ready to assume any project based on this, and that there's a warning flag up there. And maybe we need to use different language.
I think the warning flag should specifically speak to the identified potential issues with underground storage tanks. We just don't know.
Okay.
Exactly.
Yep.
Stuart, I have just a quick question. Will removing the foundations, I don't know what the site is zoned for. Is there something there by removing the foundations that we are prohibited from building on the site? Or are there any implications to that? I'm just trying to think of something else that could come out of removing. I mean, cleaning up the site is great and removing all that stuff, but if you remove the building, could you ever rebuild again on that site?
Yes.
Okay.
We transferred responsibility for that site a number of years ago. We had to find some land that we could say would be conservation land. We had to go through the state to make sure that we got approval for that. So we can build on that site.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that was taken into account, because sometimes these things are grandfathered in and you could reuse the foundations to rebuild something if that's what you're looking for. But if you remove it, then you can't ever build again.
I think we can, as long as we stay within the constraints of the land that we got approval from the state on, then we're okay, I believe.
I would agree with that, George.
I would, my only caution, having read it several years ago, is that I believe there's a sunset date on that permission from the state, and that should be checked.
Oh, goodness. I think you're right, Hank. That's a good point. But I don't think we're close, but it's worth checking.
I just think it's worth checking what all the implications are in that perspective, just to make sure that we don't, eliminate that as a future site for anything.
Yeah.
So
my
do you have that, Mike?
recollection was that there was a 10-year window, and we may need to renew it.
So Mike, do you have these topics that we brought up for further investigation?
Yep.
Okay. All right. So I would like to close this down unless there's a real need to jump in. Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. With that closed, there's no voting items for the Ridge Hill. The next topic is the Sunita Williams School. I mean, we're a little bit behind on time. I apologize. I don't know if we can speed up on some of these topics and get to the point. For the Sunita Williams, we have the status update, the pay apps, and we also have a question from the Finance Committee. So on the agenda, there is a B, but there's a C item, 3 items. So Hank, are you going to take it away?
Yeah, I'll start in and let Michael and or Don add as needed. I did send out the agenda. 99.98% complete. We now have worked through the majority of the punch list and the warranty items. And I'd say the majority of the O&M manuals have now been reviewed along with the as-built drawings. Once those are 100% complete, we will get full copies of those. We have been sharing information with the building maintenance department as needed for their work. The site and the landscape punch list was fully complete. The landscape warranty will extend for another full year. In this instance, what we've agreed to is to have them post a $10,000 bond from the landscape subcontractor so that we can release the balance of the retainage for that sub. We anticipate getting sign off from Concom this Thursday, day after tomorrow. And hopefully the next invoice would be the final one from the contractor for the month of September. And at that point, we are also hoping within 30 days, maybe within 15 days, to get approval of the lead silver from the USGBC, assuming no further questions from them. So those all would be points that MSBA would be looking for before they would enter into the final closeout and audit. But our intention is to try to get into that process later this month. We have hit the 95% reimbursement threshold, and so no further reimbursement will be forthcoming from the MSBA until we go through the final budget revision request, BRR, and get through the final audit. And then everything, the books will be settled out all at once. We're hoping to complete that entire process prior to the end of 2020. But we don't know how rapidly MSBA will be responding. Any questions on those points?
I don't see any. Go ahead.
We did also get a request from DPW. As you know, the project paid for, but was not being reimbursed for, the sidewalk work, the additional sidewalk work that was done along Central Avenue. That was completed and all prior to the opening of the school. That was about a $200,000 ad. They are now, at the specific request of the Sunset Cephalo neighbors, going to proceed with refurbishing the sidewalk that goes down Cephalo and then Sunset from Central to the back entrance to the building, with the intent then of doing the repaving of that street either later this year or next year. So they've asked if the committee would consider $49,000 of additional project funding for that sidewalk repair and replacement, which includes 2 handicap ramps along that edge. And I said, well, we'd discuss it, but it certainly was not part of the original project. So is there any?
Who would pay for the road work, Hank?
DPW.
Okay, so all they really are looking for is the sidewalk costs.
Yes, and only the sidewalk costs from Central along the right-hand side of the road that goes to the back of the school, which is apparently about two-thirds of their total sidewalk costs within that area.
This is something that came up when we were doing the earlier work. And what we had indicated to the select board, they asked us if we would consider this. And I basically said, I don't think we can until the project is completed. We did agree to pay for the work up front on Central Ave, but we kind of tacitly said that we would strongly consider getting those sidewalks repaired leading up to the back of the school. I think it's a good idea if we have the funds available for it, and it's not a huge amount of money, as long as DPW is paying for the rest.
Yeah, I don't know the total cost. They apparently went out to bid earlier in the year, just at the time of the pandemic, didn't get very good bids or didn't get any bids. I guess they got one that was way too high, so they had to rebid it. And now they have a good contractor they feel they can work with, hence their delay in coming back to us on this. But yes, George, I think that if the students that live in that neighborhood and maybe some that live nearby might prefer taking that approach to the school, those sidewalks. And they are in desperate need of repair.
They are. I agree.
And I think we did talk about this a while ago, and that was also
We-
part of the street repaving topic as well. And I think that if I recollect, it actually, because of the work that was done and the way it was done, I think we're saving the town some money by having it done and incorporating this. And it is part of the school thing, but maybe misrepresenting that.
I think this is a reasonable request. And as I said, I think we tacitly kind of agreed to it, even though we didn't formally agree to it.
Right.
It's something that we said we would like to consider.
Anybody else from the committee have a concern? Okay, I don't see any hands up or any heads nodding or concerns. So I think that the question I would have is, as a committee, do we need to vote this in?
Yes.
Okay, or does that come through a change order process vote?
Well, we can vote that we agree that the committee will pay for a reasonable amount for those sidewalks, and we expect the quote to come from DPW.
Well, it's $49,000. That's what's being put forth.
Then we can put that in there.
Okay. All right. So I'll put forth a motion to afford the $49,000 within the budget. And do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, Irwin. Okay. Any further questions? Then here comes the vote with a roll call. Richard?
Aye.
George?
Aye.
Natasha?
Aye.
Roy?
Aye.
Irwin?
Aye.
Stuart's aye. And I think, Michael, you are a user group. This guy's hands up and I can see the word aye.
Aye.
Okay. Great. All right. Back to you, Hank.
So that's the latest update. I think otherwise we have two voting items. There was the Bacon Construction Company pay app
Robert Lord.
last month. And then we just got a Robert Lord invoice for FF&E as well. And I think Catherine included that on the list.
Okay. So why don't we go ahead with those two voting items? I'll group them and then we have one final topic on the table. Unless there is objection, I am going to put forth two invoices in one vote. The first one is the Bacon Construction Requisition 35 through August 2020 for $52,090.76. That's GC budget. The second invoice is Robert H. Lord for additional cafeteria tables, which is under the FF&E budget. This is invoice for a total of $5,783.46. Excuse me. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, George. Any questions? Hearing none, seeing none, coming to the roll call. Richard,
Aye.
George,
Aye.
Natasha,
Sorry, aye.
Roy,
Aye.
Irwin,
Aye.
Stuart's an aye. Michael?
Aye.
Okay, great. All right. That is the voting items. And the one last topic is the question from the Finance Committee. There was a question regarding the rescinding that we did. We talked about it over the summer. I can't remember exactly the specific meeting. We've given the size of the remaining budget of, I think it was 10 million. We offered to rescind 9 million. And the question came back, I don't know if it was in the last week or the last couple of days, and I'll leave it to Hank and Steve to qualify that. But the question is, why did we not do more? I think you all have the email of that request. Am I correct, Hank and Steve?
I don't know. We received the request today. I don't know if it's been distributed to
Okay.
the other.
My fault. So now it's in this discussion, it is on the table, and I think we should provide Hank and Steve a collective perspective on that. And I think, from my perspective, we were going to rescind less. We actually offered more, and I think that because the project wasn't closed, we needed that safety valve. We didn't anticipate anything, but it just made sense to give as much as we could, but just leave a buffer in there. But I opened it up to the committee for a couple of minutes here. Again, I'm looking at time. I don't recommend that we go to all ends. I think we just need to provide some perspective so we can answer the question. Anybody have any comments to offer up?
I guess the question is, why are they interested in that? We discussed this with the assistant town manager responsible for finances, and I think that was kind of an agreed upon number, wasn't it, Hank and Steve?
That's my recollection.
So I think we gave them what he indicated. That was a very generous rescission of that amount. I mean, we probably could have done another $500,000. I don't know. I can't imagine us. We have how much, Hank? Is it about $1.3 million? Something like that.
Yeah.
What's that?
Correct.
So we have about $1.3 million. I can't imagine we'll spend more than another $500,000. But should we send them back 700,000 or more?
I don't think we should rescind anymore. I just think we need to give a position.
Well, the project isn't finished. There are issues that are still being addressed. We're still paying bills, and we rescinded about 90% of the amount that we had. That's pretty good, I think. Unless there's some reason why they wanted to see more. Probably the most that we would want to do is another maybe $500,000 to $750,000 at this point. I don't want us to get down to a skinny budget and then all of a sudden find we've got another issue to deal with.
Steve, I haven't had a chance to talk to town manager. Have you?
I have, not about the specific request, but about comments that have come up during deliberations with FinCom on Sunita Williams. And those comments were a little bit different than what we received from Lois Mitskard this afternoon. Those comments were more related to that why did we have so much money left over?
Well, we
And
can answer that really easy.
Well, the way I explained it is we did the estimate. We followed the protocol that we always follow. However, we ran into a very good bidding climate and got several favorable bids. And that's the reason why the budget was basically, why we have $10 million left on our appropriation. The actual reason, so when I got this message this afternoon, I was a little bit thrown by the tenure of the comment. And I'm not sure they're looking for us to rescind more money. I don't know where the comment came from.
What specifically was the comment? Why did we have so much money left?
Why, no, the comment that came in writing this afternoon was, why did we only rescind $9 million?
And not more. So,
I guess I would answer that question by saying that we rescinded approximately 90% of what was available. And until the project is at the point where we're ready to stop spending on it, we really believe that we shouldn't rescind any more at this point.
I would agree with that. Yep, I would agree with that. Any other
That's
comments
simple.
from the committee? Okay, I'm gonna, unless you have another point, Hank or Steve, I think that's the line.
And I think we ought to indicate in there also that this was discussed with Dave
Yes.
Davison.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah. Just to clarify, the earlier dialogue I had with the town manager sort of implied why some member of the FinCom was trying to make the point that we should be bidding under Chapter 149 instead of Chapter 149A.
Well, that's their opinion, but they're not running this committee.
Agreed.
That's my comment back. How's that?
I think it's an excellent comment, and there's very good reasons why we chose to judge whether or not a project should be bid out under 149 or 149A.
We should tell FinCom, worry about the money. Don't worry about how the project's going to be done.
Yeah, but I think in all fairness, George, I think that with another project that's on our books is on the other side of the equation. And I think that's where it gets hard, the balancing act, right? I agree. We're here to run these projects as best we can. But on the same token, there's some fair questions on the other side. As we've spoken before, it's the education of understanding these projects. So I think your point is made. I think that, I think Steve, we should let them know that, I agree. It was the bidding environment that set us up nicely for this project and this finance, and that's it. But until the project's closed out, we cannot go to a zero budget. Pure and simple. All right. Any other comments? I would like to try and close this out, but I do not want to shortchange if there's another important point. Okay. All right. Thank you. So Hank, that's the 3 items that I had on this agenda. Any more for Sunita?
Nope.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Michael. Thanks, Donald, Don, and others. Okay, so we're going to pivot to the public safety complex. The last project on the agenda tonight. I presume I turn that to you, Ken. And just before you start, you got the status update. We do have some pay apps. We've got a number of them. We have a number of invoices, change orders to approve. And I think just also the budget's important under the circumstances, Ken, if we can just make sure that's within the update discussion. I'll turn it to you, Ken.
Sure. Okay. Well, as everyone I'm sure is aware, we've got the fire department moved into their new headquarters. That happened 2 weeks ago, and things seem to be moving along fairly well. There's still some punch list items need to be done, still shelves that were not able to get installed and earlier. They're coming to do that this week. A few odds and ends with the consoles. The communication system is working fine. They're now working on the DPW and emergency communications end of it. Hopefully that will be done by the end of the month. Started phase 2 officially today. We started to do some fence work and the abatement inside the building. That should take about a week, and then we'll be able to get into the demo, assuming we get all of our disconnect notices from the various utilities. Right now, Eversource Electric seems to be our hang up on that end. But we continue to chase them to get that disconnected so we can get our demo permit, which that's required for. Over at Fire Station 2, the soil work is all done. They have one dumpster left over at the RTS that they need to take out. It was overweight, so they got to split it between 2 dumpsters, so they got to bring in a new one. All the foundation work is complete. They're working on backfill and soon underground utilities, and by the end of the month, we'll have steel going up. So that's the next step there. There'll be some backfilling and waterproofing done on the foundation walls at Fire Station 2 as they work through that. We're still targeting a September, October 2021 substantial completion at Fire Station 2 and January, February 2022 on the police department. As far as the budget is concerned, there was a budget attached to your package. You'll note that as we discussed, I think it was at the interim update we did a few weeks ago, we've noted that the assumed town meeting funding of 1.7 million is in there. So we still have a positive balance for the contingency. Without that, as Stuart noted earlier in an email to Steve and I, that if you do the math, we'd be negative right now if you don't include that in there. But we all knew that from our update 2 weeks ago. But that's where we are in terms of the budget. On the ACL, there's a number of items that have been on here for a while that we're still working on. We're still trying to get the electric and security revisions for the police department side so that we can do some quote unquote value engineering on that. And on Fire Station 2, those two items are close to $250,000 alone. We have the contaminated soil number in there, the GR requirements for Fire Station 2, winter conditions, and then some various smaller ones. The other big one in there, there's one in there for Fire Station 2 traffic signal revisions, but that number is going to come down substantially because it was determined that a lot of the work that was part of that is due in part to the MDOT work that will be happening at that intersection. So our feeling is that's theirs to repair when the time comes. That's not ours to have to foot that cost. And we'll have some continuing discussions with MDOT, I'm sure, on that. We have a meeting tomorrow with the risk assessment folks from Terra as to what we need to do with any underslab vapor mitigation. And that's about the highlights on that end of it. If anyone has any questions on schedule, budget, and the like?
Yep, I got 2 questions, but I see Irwin, your hand's up, so go ahead.
Thank you. I remember the last time we were waiting on some results on groundwater. Do we know if that's okay or?
That's the subject of the meeting tomorrow. An email came in late today that I have not been able to review with some of the information, but that is what we're discussing tomorrow, Erwin, is the results of all the groundwater stuff.
Okay, so we still don't have the complete picture on.
They have it. I just don't know what it means. I mean, they detected some stuff. I looked at it real quick. They detected some stuff, but it was not at it was above the detectable level, but it didn't meet the, I can't remember whether it was reportable level or the next level up. But I don't know what it means for sort of down the road on the project. That's something I have to ask tomorrow with their mitigation folks. But there is
Next,
in the groundwater within the boundaries around the building that would require some kind of mitigation.
okay, so next report, we'll have more details on that.
Yes. I'll have more detail tomorrow.
Okay. Thanks, Irwin. George, I know you have your hand up.
Yes, a quick one. I know that this project has been delayed, and it's going to mean that we are moving this into the winter in some areas that we didn't originally expect to. So my question is, do we have sufficient funds in there for unexpected winter conditions that are caused because of the environmental issues?
We're carrying 100,000 right now. That's our next step, is to do a more finite analysis on that, because you're absolutely right in saying that we're moving into winter conditions, but we're also moving some stuff out of winter conditions by the fact that it got pushed off, and we'll have work being done. For instance, heating the building itself won't be necessary because we wanted the building closed in for as long a time as we had under the original schedule. So we need to lay the original schedule, I should just say, the pre-soil schedule with the current schedule side by side, and get the impact on that. But we're currently carrying 100,000 winter conditions to cover the delay due to the soils.
And you think that'll be okay?
For the soils, yes. But for overall, we've got precious little money. If you recall, last year we had to throw, I think it was an additional $100,000, maybe it was more, into winter conditions. And we were going to have to do that anyways. We've only got roughly 23,000 left in the winter conditions line item. So we're going to have to put money into that period, whether there was a soil delay or not.
Okay, and the other question relates to, does everyone know, does the town manager and the FinCom know that we're essentially operating on a negative number right now?
I think that was apparent at the meeting we had with FinCom and the selectmen, a month or so ago.
The assumption, the premise I believe everybody is operating under is that by May, George, that the contingency would be 0. I think it's fair to say that we now see there's risk that might be negative, but as I call it, the financial gymnastics, I believe that we can manage the payments and everything through, but the assumption is that the town meeting would need to pass for us to get past May. And
As long as everybody's aware of it.
yeah, and I think that with that said, I just want to make a comment and make sure we all understand it and apparent. I would like it reflected in the meeting minutes that in the project budget, you are now carrying an assumed number, the 1.7. You brought it up, but I think everybody needs to recognize that. So as we look at the financial Excel spreadsheet moving forward, and we look at that bottom line contingency, just do not forget we have that assumptive 1.7 in there. It's very easy to forget it, but we are in a situation where we've got to manage. What we're going to do is how we manage the project normally, but we just can't assume that there's some monies there, and we do need to make sure that we are diligent on our change orders and all types of costs. But back to the original question, George, I think you're part of some of those discussions, but the assumption is that we probably be about 0 as we get to May. And I think that's the part us as a committee have to recognize and manage to, and I mean, quite frankly, be concerned. We're running on the fumes come May. Anything else, George, before I bring up another couple of topics?
All set.
Thank you. The only other thing I had was the 2 things. Ken, quick question. The intersection for the Mass Department of Transportation, I'm not sure I followed that.
MDOT is doing a project from roughly Webster Street all the way to Route 9. And they're widening Highland Ave, or whatever it turns into in Newton, think it's dead. I think it's Needham Street.
Got it. Yeah.
Sidewalks, the whole night. So that,
It's from the bridge work. It's all the pieces
Yeah.
that we're coming close
Yes.
to. Got it. Yeah, that's right. Okay.
so we're the start of it, as near as we can figure. We're the start of it. Mike is trying to set up a meeting with somebody he knows that's involved with the project, just so we can get a better idea of the locations of some of the work, just to make sure it doesn't impact with what we may be doing at the site at the time, because they're planning on starting this month actually with their they've actually started with some of the utility work. That intersection was dug up with gas lines and the like, and that was part of that project.
Okay, because I bring it up because I think this assumption, there should be no assumption out there. I would be concerned, and I'm hoping you come back the next time and say that everybody's aligned from a design perspective, but I see change issues. I see their assumption, our assumption having some gap, whether it's the width of the sidewalk or.
KBA actually met with MDOT. The plans were out there. So this kind of came about roundabout, this change with the traffic signals. But the rest of it is all, we know what they're doing. They're not going to be undoing any of our work. We wanted to make sure we got everything in the street before they started. And
Right. It's all position of the exit, where the lights are, who has control. I don't, Michael McKeon, you have a comment, or if I may, can ask?
It's the loops. This change order that's on here now, that 36,000, was essentially the loops on Webster Street, because they were going to get dug up. When MDOT does their work, they're going to get dug up.
My understanding is what was in the change order, and I'm sure it's changed a bit since then, was because of what they found in the ground. There had to be, the structure had to be revised. I do know that we had a meeting, our LA people met with DOT, but I'm not familiar with exactly the contents of that meeting. I'll find out tomorrow and get back to you.
Okay.
Was that just recent, Mike?
We'll have to watch it.
Mike, was that a recent meeting they had with MDOT?
No, that was a while ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. Keith brought me up to speed with everything that was discussed, and Dave McKinley. So.
Okay, but did he, I don't remember seeing any notes from the meeting. So.
No, that I've never seen. No.
Okay, well, I'll look for that tomorrow.
I just know they laid the design side by side so that MDOT wasn't undoing anything that we were doing.
That was my understanding. It was a coordination meeting.
Right.
Okay. So that's, we won't know until you go through your work, Ken. So, but I think it's important for us to hear the next, I would like to hear the next discussion. And if there's anything that's cropped up, I'm sure we will if it's something big, but okay. I just have one more question, and just to confirm, because I think the last time I thought it was January was police closure and occupancy. It's now February. Is that just simply because the soils are finalized?
No, police is January, February, so that has nothing to do with the soils.
Oh, okay, because you said February earlier on, so did I mishear you?
The January, February 2022 timeframe for police, and September, October 2021 for Fire Station 2.
Yeah, I got that, but you said February, so I thought it shifted from January.
Oh, I'm sorry. No.
Okay, just want to be clear. We're still on that January track. That's fine. Give or take, bad weather, whatever. Okay. Those are just the quick questions I had. Anybody else? George, I see your hand up. Was that from prior or?
That was prior. Yep.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other questions before we go to the voting items?
No, just note, and Stuart, you've got them all anyways, but as I said in my email when I sent the agenda out, there was likely going to be more invoices. So if you're looking at the agenda I sent out a week and a half ago, there are a lot more invoices that we'll be voting on tonight, and Stuart and Catherine have all those, so we should be able to make our way through that.
Okay, Catherine sent out an updated invoice this afternoon, so I'll read them down. Again, I'm going to group a bunch of these because they seem to make sense. So what I'd like to do is put forth for payment 2 COs. The first one is Castle Booze Allen for the PSS 36 That is actually a negative number, $3,805.65. That's a credit. The second one is Consigli, the change order number 20, general contractor for $92,451. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, Richard. Okay, any questions? Hearing none, coming to the vote, I will do the roll call. Richard,
Aye.
George,
Aye.
Natasha.
Aye.
Oh, there you are. Okay. Roy.
Aye.
Irwin. I saw the eye. I think we got it. You're on mute, but that's okay. I got it. If we're okay with that. I saw Irwin. I saw him move to an eye. Stewart's an eye. Chief Condon. Thanks. I can see your hand eye. A little bit of volume issue there. Chief Schittler.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay. Next round is an invoice from, I'll do this separately. This is a big one. Consigli requisition 19 through August 2020 for $1,023,657.24 in the GC budget. I put forth that for payment. Do I hear a second?
Seconded.
Thank you, George. Any questions? Seeing none, hearing none, coming to the vote. Richard?
Aye.
George?
Aye.
Natasha?
Aye.
Roy?
Aye.
Irwin?
Aye.
Stewart's an aye. Chief Condon? We got a hand motion. I like that. Chief Schlittler?
Aye.
Okay, great. All right, I'm going to put two invoices together from the architect. The first one is KBA August 2020 Services CA within the architect budget for $35,752.94. Second invoice grouped into that is KBA August 2020 Service Traffic Signals within the architect budget for $2,972.97. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second.
Thank you, Natasha. Any questions? Hearing none, seeing none, I will roll call. Richard,
Aye.
George,
Aye.
Natasha,
Aye.
Roy,
Aye.
Irwin,
Aye.
Steve Condon. I saw the hand. All right, we got it. Got the right hand. Chief Schlittler.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, I have got 6 invoices together. Bear with me for a second. First one is W. Mason waste baskets for $246.62 from F&E budget. Second invoice for W. Mason waste baskets, $50.16 FF&E. Wow. Third invoice for waste baskets for $4.18 from FF&E. If you allow me a little comedy, I know Chief Condon's office is full of waste baskets, so, and he's on mute and he can't fight back on that one. All right. Next invoice is WB Mason mattresses and chairs for $11,859.07 from the FF&E budget. And two further invoices. The first, the fifth one here, Robert Lord and Company Furniture from the FF&E budget for $182,658.29. And the last invoice within this group is also Robert Lloyd Furniture from the FF&E budget for $10,179. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, Roy. Any questions? Hearing none, coming to the vote, roll call. Richard?
Aye.
George?
Aye.
Natasha?
Aye.
Roy?
Aye.
Irwin?
Aye.
Stewart's and I. Chief Condon? Thank you. Sorry, I saw the wrong window. My apologies. Chief Schlittler?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, two technology invoices, grouping them together as well. Two, Connectivity Point Temp FS Fire Station 2 phone work, $796. Harbor Networks for phones out of the tech budget for $132,001.15. I put forth those two invoices for payment. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Irwin, thank you. Any questions? Hearing none, seeing none, coming to the vote through roll call. Richard?
Aye.
George?
Aye.
Natasha?
Aye.
Roy?
Aye.
Irwin?
Aye.
Stewart's and I. Chief Condon? I see the right hand. Chief Schlittler?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay. All right. Oh, I should have put that one with it too. Have an invoice. Put forth the following invoice for payment from Motorola Solutions within the other budget. It's the communication budget and how we did it, right? $504,282. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, George. Any questions? Hearing none, seeing none. Coming to the roll call. Coming to a vote, roll call. Richard?
Aye.
George?
Aye.
Natasha?
Aye.
Roy?
Aye.
Irwin?
Aye.
Stewart's and I. Chief Condon? Aye, I like that. He's gone to a sign. I like that. I presume the other side's nay, right? Fair enough. Chief Schlittler?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, last set of invoices, 4 of them. Put forth for approval, Wakefield Moving, police move to Hillside, $9,450, miscellaneous budget. Mass Department of Fire Services, the boiler inspection, $50 under the miscellaneous budget. UTS of Massachusetts, July and August materials testing for $4,575 out of the miscellaneous budget. And the final invoice, Needham Police, for services on 8/24, 8/26, and 8/27 for $906.50. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, George. Any questions? Hearing none, seeing none, coming to the vote. Roll call, please. Richard?
Aye.
George?
Aye.
Natasha?
Aye.
Roy?
Aye.
Irwin?
Aye.
Stewart's and I. Chief Condon? Aye. I see that. Chief Schlittler?
Aye.
All right, great. Thank you. Okay. I believe that wraps up. I'm looking at my notes. I think that wraps everything up, Ken, does it not?
It does. Catherine, unless we're missing something, I think he got them all, right?
Yes, they're all accounted for.
All right, so that brings to conclusion the Public Safety Complex and Fire Station 2 project on tonight's agenda. That wraps the project section of the agenda. The committee has a couple of discussion points. So for the public safety projects, thanks, folks. Both chiefs, KBA folks.
Thanks. Take care.
Okay, from a committee standpoint, I believe we have 2 topics. One is on the school master plan. I would just ask that the draft report has been pushed out. I know some of us, and maybe all of us, have looked at various pieces of this along the way. I believe this recent draft is a more clean, consistent one from a write-up standpoint. I just ask that everybody please review that. I believe the meeting for school committee has shifted to October 6th. That gives us a little leeway. We also, in the last discussion or the discussion prior, had said that we would wait for school committee to bring its feedback or to get feedback out of that meeting before we finalize the report. I believe we want to stay that direction. But because the school committee is going to review it October 6th, we have a little bit more runway. I think it'd just be good if everybody just put a fresh set of eyes on it and provide any feedback. Steve, you have any comments relative to this?
My only comment is that I'm not sure. Well, I guess we should try to get school committee comments in there. I'm more actually interested in getting the superintendent's comments. on the report. The report itself doesn't need to provide a closure, but I have a feeling we're going to get a range of comments from the school committee that deal with more than just the recommendation of the report itself. In other words, I think we're going to hear things such as sensitivity type of questions on what would happen if we delayed the project or any of the projects, what are the consequences and so forth. And that gets a little bit beyond the scope of the report. The report is pretty succinct about the advantages of the different options. And I'm afraid we're going to need to decide whether or not that report should be issued in the framework it's in right now, or we're going to somehow expand, and we don't have a budget for expanding the scope to deal with a bunch of sensitivity type questions. So that's a concern I have about waiting for the school committee to respond and not putting out the report as it stands now.
Steve, is there something that you can do to, I know the superintendent is deep into the current school year situation with the COVID, turning things upside down, but do you need us to reach out to him to ask for it? Are you talking to him to get some of those comments, or? Because that's, I agree, getting his comments sooner would help us, I'm sure.
I have tried to extract some comments. He's generally pretty responsive. I'm waiting for a reply as to now that he has delayed the school committee process and a vote, it's beyond the CIP deadline. And how does he really plan to merge the budgetary process into now a delayed vote on moving forward? All of which leads me to the presumption I have that we will be asked to do some sensitivity work regarding a delay on implementing the process.
I mean, I know that the other twist here is that the SMP and the Emory Grover is coming together, because that affects how the thinking on Emory Grover and some of the discussions we had with the chairs. But George, is your hand up for something?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I'll get you a second, Irwin.
I got to clarify my thoughts on it.
Do you want to wait and have Irwin go ahead?
Yeah, go ahead. Irwin.
Go ahead, Irwin.
I'm worried about surprising the school committee if we put out the report before they've had a chance to develop some comments, unless we can communicate with them that if we could just rely on the superintendent's comments. I don't think they should be surprised if they're about to submit comments to us and find out that we've finished the report ahead of that. So it's almost as a courtesy concern.
I
that we at least communicate with them.
I think we need the feedback there to finalize.
Can I just ask the question, if the comments come back and start to get into expanded scope of the study, what direction would the committee anticipate that we go forward on?
I think,
Obviously, we need to get more money to do that.
yeah, exactly. The budget and the scope has been put on the table. I feel the committee, I believe that the school committee's comment should be more to the output of what's there now from a data standpoint than going and reopening the can of worms. Makes any sense.
And if they think additional studies need to be done, I think they need to put forth another item on town meeting floor to say we need X dollars more because we want to look at this, this, and this.
Yeah.
Okay.
You want my question now?
Yes, go ahead, George.
My question is, originally I had asked for a hard copy with some 11 by 17s. I saw the copy that came out the other day. I still have the same request. Is that on the way, or have we?
I thought Michelle had made a comment about doing that along with Hank. Am I correct, Steve?
I thought so.
I thought that was too. I don't see Hank still here, but
I don't think it's been done. Hank has been, frankly, putting in, and he's putting in hours as we speak right now, dealing with the other issue of ventilation.
I'm not complaining about that. I'm simply saying I still have the same request.
Yeah, we can. Well,
Why don't we get Michelle to do it? Isn't there any money to do that in the budget?
I'm sure there could be money. I don't know. I know Hank made the comment about giving, he'll make the copies. We can easily make the copy. George, do you want all the detail on the CIP, which deals with all the with all the schools in the system, in the district? There were two pieces to this. The overall page numbers, just on the verbiage, the piece that I sent out the other day was 130 pages. I think it's more than triple once you get into the detail on each of the schools in the district. If you want all,
I don't think I need all of that. And if I do need more, it would happen after I read the initial part of it.
I think we could just do a printout of what's been sent out in the last couple of days, the draft.
What he's saying is there's a lot of detail in there as you look at each and every school. I don't need all of that.
No, but I thought that Michelle had separated out a lot of detail. What was sent via email was the draft. I'm just trying to pull it up right now, the draft report, and we can just print it out by printer. And then George, you can, I believe, request the other material background, and we can go dig some of that up.
All right, how many copies? How many copies are being requested? The one for each member.
I believe it's just George.
I'd be glad to share it, but I just want the ability to sit there, read the narrative, look at the tables and charts, and without flipping back with 3 or 4 screens and going crazy here.
Yeah, I just asking how many.
Well, I want one.
Okay.
Okay, anybody else? Doesn't look like it. Okay, great. Any other questions, comments? And I just, again, just to reemphasize, I'd ask everybody to please read the electronic version and provide any things. For example, I raised to Steve, there's no PVC listed in the report. And the only other thing I was going to raise, what I don't want to do is debate what it is. A simple question: should we be doing a write-up like what we did for Emory Grover, or is this report differently such that it really speaks for itself and doesn't require the PVC to put an upfront acknowledgement or exec summary?
Yeah, no, I don't think it does, Stuart. I think we had agreed early on that the report basically lays out 4 scenarios, wasn't going to direct a recommendation. The report itself speaks to the advantages of one particular scenario over the other 3, but it doesn't necessarily say this is what should be done. And I don't think we should be.
It's not our role. I agree, Steve. I don't think it's our role.
Okay, great. I just wanted to make sure we clarify that. Other than that, Steve, I just thought that the PVC should be within the acknowledgements.
Yeah, I got that.
Okay. Any other final pieces on that one? Okay, great. The only other topic I just wanted to bring up, just a comment, and George, you know, you and I communicated at one point, but I believe the next meeting on the 21st, we'd asked to do an agenda item just to talk a bit about the building maintenance and discuss, you know, what we discussed last spring. With COVID, it sort of took some of the topic off the table. George, I don't know how you feel about that. I just look to you to comment if you think the agenda item still should be on the 21st or we need to move it. Just want to confirm.
I think we could probably move it to the next meeting if you want to. I don't think we ought to discuss it at a meeting where we have so much on the agenda with the public safety building.
Okay.
We really don't have the public safety at the next meeting.
On the 21st?
On the 21st.
Okay, then we could discuss it then. I'll get something to you, Stuart, by the end of this week.
Okay, great. And so I think, Catherine, if we don't have to call full item, I think we just do it in other business, PVC other business.
Okay.
But I just want to make sure everybody just is aware of that. So if you have some thoughts regarding the building maintenance and concerns that we have, that we've had over the last couple of months, that we come to the table with some thoughts. I think we should respond and encourage this discussion. Okay.
Stuart, if I may, I was going to suggest at the next meeting, we're going to have an agenda item on the update on the building ventilation, which we talked to at the last meeting. And if there are discussions that deal with the long-term maintenance, I mean, it's clear that what's happening is this whole exercise now of getting the schools in a situation, you know, in a situation where they can open, has led to deferred maintenance, deferred attention to the system information that was being provided under the BMS. And so it's a natural segue into the conversation, which I think you guys want to have on thinking forwardly how you're going to present this issue, or how you're going to unravel this issue to a point where you want to make some commentary to town leadership.
Okay.
So that's how I'd like to handle it. Put the ventilation update on the agenda, and then we can segue into other discussions if we have it.
Hank will be available for that?
Yes.
Okay.
That's the intent.
Okay. Great. Okay. Thanks. That's the only 2 quick topics that I had. Is there anybody else that has any other topics for the committee meeting tonight? Okay. With that, I think we will adjourn. Thanks, everybody. Hope you had a good Labor Day weekend and have a great rest of the short week.
Go Celtics.
Oh,
But you have your Patriots shirt on there, George.
I do. I have one of my 3 Patriots shirt on because this week I'm wearing a Patriots shirt every day. a different one.
Have you got your Cam Newton jersey yet?